China has apparently been putting spies very, very close to various politicians on the left. And this is more than just Dianne Feinstein at this point. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on there. A podcast hostess calls Kelly Loeffler a cunt federate. So I guess we'll look back and see what that means. I'm very, very interested to talk about that. Florida police kicked down the door of Rebecca Jones because she might have told people wrong information about COVID-19. And Republicans in my home state of Wisconsin defy Tony Evers and put up the Christmas tree in the Capitol anyway. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Look at all this stuff we've got to go over here, and there's a bunch of it today. They definitely are. I mean, CNN has got to be doing something here to try and trigger a lot of this stuff here because they want to sell more commercials before they lose the Trump bump. I don't know who's going to win at this point because I don't know if the media wants to see Donald go away and all their free commercials and advertising. People might go back to watching reality TV again, which they've been doing for the last 4 years in politics anyway. And one could argue the last 12 years in politics. But we will get into all of that. We'll get into all the fun stuff. And Ted Cruz pissing everybody off with his deer hunting picture of a tiny deer. But before we get into any of that, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, where we carry my show, but we also carry great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Generational Gap, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The R-Rated Conservative. Go over and check out The R-Rated Conservative on rratedconservative.com. rrcpodcast.com is his website. His main channel has been suspended, which is why he's not pulling into our website right now. But go over there, check him out, get the links to his backup channel, hang out with him, and let him know that you're still thinking about him. All right. Before we get into the news here, just a couple little things of cleanup here. First off, my wonderful co-host Elaine, if you guys weren't here last night, got into it with Trapped. Well, Trapped's Twitter account is officially suspended at this point. I am glad I grabbed the screen grab and even put it up into Discord where I could pull it back up and bring it back out here so we could see this here. Because Trapped tweeted out yesterday, "It's all rape if it's underage, but to compare what a 5-year-old with a priest goes through to a 15-year-old boy through puberty with a 25-year-old teacher," which, as I mentioned last night, I'm pretty sure Van Halen wrote a song about that, completely discounts what that young boy deals with and will continue to have to deal with. If you believe this, you are blocked. And since Elaine realized that if you tell somebody to go start a shotgun on Twitter, you get suspended, she turned it around a little bit to go start a wood chipper, you complete fucking walnut. And now they are no more. They no longer have, well, they have a Twitter account, but it's currently suspended, so you can't go see this tweet. I actually tried to bring up the original insult tweet that she had, but unfortunately Twitter was not having it. It reloaded the page, and because they're suspended, it disappeared. So that's what's happening at that end of the world. And this, if you guys are not in the Discord, hit the Discord link in the description below you on all platforms. Come on in and join us for the discussion on this. We're talking about this monstrosity that you see up on the screen in front of you. Replikai, meet the world's first AI friend. And she's been missing you. This whole thing just... I posted this up on Twitter, and I see people talking about kill it with fire, let's nuke it, how do we destroy this thing, such like that. And I mean, this is scary shit right here. The fact that people are turning around and going in and having to have an AI friend. Because we can't open up the economy, people can't go and hang out with each other at this point. If you open the economy, we're not going to see stupid shit like this. Well, we probably would have eventually, but it would have been slowed down because people would have been too busy out drinking beer with their friends to go and do something like this. I guess Seawall's tried this thing too, and apparently the app is buggy as hell, and of course you've got to put your pronouns in the beginning, and I don't know if they had a third gender option or what the hell the deal was with that, but yeah, I guess this is completely fucking woke too, so This is happening in the culture, whether we want it to or not. All right, cleanup is over. Let's have a look at what is going on with the stocks, which the stocks had a major down day. Well, not a minor down day. A minor down day yesterday. They dropped through. They stayed in the red throughout the day, closing out at 30,218.26. We're never going to come back from the economy that Donald Trump destroyed. As the projection for what the economy is going to do, the Dow Jones sits at a record for almost a week straight. So I just thought that was interesting here. Let's see what the investors have to say. How to trade like an investing champion. Free webinar. Free! No, thank you. From Investors Business Daily. Dow Industrials futures drag as stimulus stalls. Copa eyes breakout. Baidu launches $1.5 billion buyback. Yeah, buyback, that's a word that you want to see when you're talking about stocks. From Alan R. Elliott. Stock futures dragged and global markets trended lower early Tuesday, even as the UK rolled out the world's first coronavirus vaccine injections. Federal stimulus negotiations ground to a halt over limits for corporate COVID-19 liability. A number of China-based stocks, led by Baidu and Futu Holdings, flexed early muscle, and Cisco Systems eased to the bottom of the Dow Industrials after announcing a $721 million acquisition. Dow Jones futures and S&P 500 futures each pulled back 0.5% versus fair value. NASDAQ 100 futures slipped 0.3% on the stock market today. China-based stocks Baidu, NetEase, and JD.com traded high on the NASDAQ 100 list. Baidu jumped 2.5% after announcing a $1.5 billion share buyback initiative. Equifax led the S&P 500 following an analyst upgrade. The stock closed Monday 2% below a 174.66 buy point in a 5-month cup with handle base. Fiserv, also an early S&P 500 leader, up nearly 5% after updating and affirming its full-year guidance. I'm kind of curious as to why Equifax is publicly traded because, I would think that would be a private holding of the banks, not necessarily something, well, no, I take that back because you can buy a membership in Equifax and they'll kind of tell you how to up your score and such like that. I've actually communicated with Equifax before. They're incredibly polite over there. Now, usually with Equifax, you have to go over there because something's wrong. But the fact of the matter is they're still polite over that. So, it's not like they're trying to pull customers in. You're in the Equifax whether you like it or not, but they at least try to ease the pain. On the IBD 50 list, Futu Holdings bolted more than 12% higher after announcing a private investment firm had agreed to buy 50 million Class A shares in the form of prepaid warrants for $260 million. Futu had triggered the 8-week hold rule in November by rising more than 20% from a breakout in fewer than 2 weeks. So that's what we're seeing from the investors on there. The futures look like they're going to be down again for a day because they're going to lock it down and nobody has any idea what the hell's going on, especially with the election coming up. But let's see what the counter has to go and then we'll check in with the news. Dow falls more than 100 points as COVID-19 cases continue to rise. NASDAQ hits record. From Fred Imbert. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500 fell on Monday following a record-setting session as traders worried about rising coronavirus cases and searched for clues on additional fiscal aid. The 30-stock Dow closed 148.47 points lower, or 0.5% at 3069.79, and snapped a 4-day winning streak. The S&P 500 dipped 0.2% to 3691.96. The Dow and the S&P 500 had closed at all-time highs on Friday. The Nasdaq Composite, meanwhile, rose 0.5% to 12,519.95 and hit a fresh record high. Value stocks, which had been on a tear recently, lagged their growth counterparts on Monday as uncertainty grew over the new-term economic outlook. The iShares Russell 1000 dipped 0.6%, and the iShares Russell 1000 growth climbed 0.4%. Excuse me. Maybe I got the commie coof again. Intel was the worst performing Dow stock, falling 3.4%. The energy sector led the S&P 500 lower, sliding 2.4%. That's interesting, because this should be the time that the energy sector is booming because people are turning their heat on. Unless you live in like Oklahoma or something where it's 90 degrees year round. Facebook rose 2.1% and Apple gained 1.2% to lead the Nasdaq higher. Tesla also contributed to the Nasdaq's gains, advancing 7.1% and reaching an all-time high. In the near term, the risk of a modest equity market pullback has risen because the worsening virus situation in the U.S. could spur a positioning unwind, wrote Goldman Sachs equity strategist in a note on Monday. Although vaccine approval in the U.S. appears imminent, increased restrictions or shutdowns in the U.S. could slow the near-term recovery in economic growth. The U.S. has reported a record-high average number of cases over the past 7 days of more than 196,200. That's up 20% when compared to the week early period. The U.S. was also approaching a record number of daily COVID-related deaths. So we'll see what's happening with that. I've got a feeling right now that some of the numbers are being pumped up and played with, but I've been feeling that since the beginning of this. When I found out that hospitals get a bonus if one of the people that dies in the hospital had COVID-19 or could have had their death attributed to COVID-19. So, I always ask for a citation when it comes to COVID-related deaths because, I mean, if you slam a motorcycle into the back of a semi and die of COVID-19, yeah, I got a couple questions about that. But that's what we're seeing up off the stocks. Let's move into the news and see what they're doing in politics. The federal apprentice writers did very, very well this week. I'm very happy with what they came up with. Starting with Axios. Exclusive suspected Chinese spy targeted California politicians from Bethany Allen Ibrahim, Zach Dorfman, and the Aspen Institute. A suspected Chinese intelligence operative developed extensive ties with local and national politicians, including U.S. congressmen, in what U.S. officials believe was a political intelligence operation run by China's main civilian spy agency. Between 2011 and 2015, Axios found a year-long investigation. The alleged operation offers a rare window into how Beijing has tried to gain access to and influence U.S. political circles. While the suspected operative's activities appear to have ended during the Obama administration, concerns about Beijing's influence operations have spanned President Trump's time in office and will continue to be a core focus for U.S. counterintelligence during the Biden administration. You want to fucking bet? And look, there's the fart himself, Eric Swalwell, pictured in this with, I guess, who appears to be the Chinese spy. Because she's in all three of the pictures. It was the Daily Wire that pointed out that it was Swalwell that got close to this woman. But I try not to use the Daily Wire when I can find another source, because otherwise, the critics of the show are going to say all you use is right-wing sources. So I use it as an aggregator and then go out and find other sources for this. But yeah, it looks like there is the fart himself. It was a coffee cup getting slid across a desk. The woman at the center of the operation, a Chinese national named Fang Fang, or Christine Fang, targeted up-and-coming local politicians in the Bay Area and across the country who had the potential to make it big on the national stage. Through campaign fundraising, extensive networking, personal charisma, and romantic or sexual relationships with at least 2 Midwestern mayors, Fang was able to gain proximity to political power, according to current and former U.S. intelligence officials and one former elected official. Even though U.S. officials do not believe Fang received or passed on classified information. Bullshit. The case was a big deal because there were some really, really sensitive people that were caught up in the intelligence network, a current senior U.S. intelligence official said. Private but unclassified information about government officials, such as their habits, preferences, schedules, social networks, and even rumors about them, is a form of political intelligence. Collecting such information is a key part of what foreign intelligence agencies do. That's also what Facebook does. Among the most significant targets of Fang's efforts was Representative Eric Swalwell. Fang took part in a fundraising activity for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign, according to a Bay Area political operative and a current U.S. intelligence official. Swalwell's office was directly aware of these activities on its behalf, the political operative said. That same political operative, who witnessed Fang fundraising on Swalwell's behalf, found no evidence of illegal contributions. Federal Election Commission records don't indicate Fang herself made donations, which are prohibited from foreign nationals. I'm going to call that bullshit too. Fang helped place at least one intern in Swalwell's office, according to those same two people, and interacted with Swalwell at multiple events over the course of several years. A statement from Swalwell's office provided to Axios says, Representative Swalwell long ago provided information about this person, whom he met more than 8 years ago, and whom he hasn't seen in nearly 6 years, to the FBI. To protect the information that might be classified, he will not participate in your story. That's funny, right there. To protect information that might be classified, he's not talking to you. That dude got caught, and he knows it. He fucking full well knows that he got caught at this point. I wonder if it was her that gave the cruciferous vegetables to Eric Swalwell that led to his unfortunate accident on the screen. Or was it MSNBC that he did that on, I think? I wonder if she was the one that gave him the Brussels sprouts. But that's definitely something to watch, because I know that we talked at length about what happened with Feinstein and her driver for the same thing, and now it's hitting Swalwell too. So, I mean, this is the guy that wants to nuke half of the country. But we will see what comes up out of this. All right, let's keep going here. From Newsweek, you have 5 articles free remaining this month. Free! Well, they're all free because if you cut me off, I'll archive them. All right, GOP Senator Scott on lessons from Trump's Florida win. Democrats want to control your life. From Natalie Colorasi. GOP Senator Rick Scott said Trump's victory in Florida should be a lesson for Republicans on how to win future elections, and warned that Democrats want to control your life in a Fox News op-ed published Friday. The Florida senator urged his party to focus on showing voters that Republicans are the party of working-class Americans. No, they're not. They're pretending to be the party of working-class Americans because Democrats are pretending to be they're both pretending to be the party of working-class Americans, but Democrats have let the mask slip at this point, becoming openly the party of rich political elites. A party that reaches out to people of all races and creeds, and a party that fights for equal opportunity for all. He continued by using Trump's election victory in Florida as an example of how Republicans can appeal to a diverse range of working-class Americans. Republicans have built a multi-ethnic, working-class coalition of Florida voters who don't like big government. Well, then why the fuck are they voting for Republicans? Don't like socialism, and just want the opportunity to live their lives in freedom and peace, he wrote. President Trump had incredible success in Florida because his message resonated with this diverse coalition of voters who didn't neatly fit into the pundits and pollsters' conception of the political world, and he worked to earn votes in my state, a necessity that Florida Democrats seemingly forgot about decades ago. Florida's 29 electoral votes were called for Trump by media outlets just 1 day after the election. In 2016, Trump won the state against Hillary Clinton by just 1.2%, or just under 113,000 votes. Exit polling from this year suggested that the president's victory could be partially attributed to his performance with Latino, non-white, and female college graduate voters, which topped his 2016 performance with such demographics. And yeah, I mean, it's looking very much like Democrats have become the party of give me free stuff and take care of you from the cradle to the grave, and if you want that abortion, you can get that abortion, and bring in the illegals. which does not resonate well with legal Cuban American voters. And the whole socialism thing doesn't resonate with them as well. So Rick Scott's absolutely right on this, and it is about control. In this article, Scott added that Democrats have failed to win Florida because residents don't want to embrace an equal outcomes economic policy that the left has pushed for. Democrats don't want you to decide your own fate. Kamala Harris said it herself. They want equal outcomes rather than equal opportunity. This attitude, if you put it into practice, would certainly lead to equality. It would just make everyone equally poor, and it would put government, not individualism, not family, not faith, at the center of American life. And that's absolutely it, too. We're seeing this from all sides, but especially out of the Democrats at this point. Equality of outcome. Everybody has to finish the same, but there's just so much of that pie to pass around, and people are going to make bad decisions. And when people do make bad decisions, and winds up costing them everything, the rest of us have to lose money to try and take care of that person. Whereas rather, you set everybody equal at the start. Everyone has the same opportunities. And we do need to do a little bit better about that, I'm not going to lie, but if we set it to where everybody has the equal opportunity, and their outcome is based on what they do with it, you get a much more diverse economy, a much more diverse world, and a much, much better outcome as far as wealth goes for the nation as a whole. The pie gets bigger, and more people get to participate in it. So, that is what Rick Scott had to say about Democrats, and I think he's absolutely right on this. Let's keep going. Self-proclaimed feminist podcaster Kelly Loeffler is a ntfederate by Tim Pierce. I saw this headline, and I thought maybe that was a word that the R-rated conservative made up, because he likes to make that kind of stuff up. But no, this is actually coming from a feminist podcaster, from Tim Pierce. Left-wing podcaster and self-proclaimed feminist Aaron Ryan ripped Senator Kelly Loeffler in a profanity-laced Twitter thread on Sunday, repeatedly referring to the lawmaker as a cunt. Kelly Loeffler is what happens when Twitter account with the bio, wife, follower of Christ, mole and lobby, libtards will be blocked, come alive, fucks a blow dryer and sends the resulting child to Confederacy Immersion School. Ryan began. She is a ntfederate, a cunt and a Trump-humping loser worshiper. I can call her a cunt because I myself am a cunt, but I tries to use my cuntiness for good instead of evil. Wow. That's a lot of use of the C word. She continued, what if Ivanka Trump were even less appealing somehow and deserved her job less? Answer, Kelly Loeffler. Ryan put out the tweet amid a runoff debate between Loeffler and Democratic candidate Radical Reverend Raphael Warnock. Ryan is a podcaster and host of Hysteria. Yeah, that's an apt title for her, by Crooked Media. She's also a contributor to the Daily Beast and a Hollywood show writer. That is the big difference between the left and the right when it comes to podcasting, because the left is still gatekeeping the way that they're doing podcasting. Maybe they're out there, but I've never found them. But for the most part, your left-wingers are Hollywood writers that are out of work, that are up there on a major media platform like Crooked Media, which also hosts Pod Save America. Whereas over on our side here, on Liberty and on the right, both, we see people that are just sitting in a small room in their apartment, talking into a microphone with somebody from another state. The Loeffler-Warnock race is one of two U.S. Senate races still contested. The other is the race for Georgia's second U.S. Senate seat between Republican Senator David Perdue and Democratic candidate Jon Ossoff. Both races are heading to a runoff election on January 5th after no candidate broke 50% of the vote. At this point, neither party has a clear control of the Senate. The chamber has 50 GOP senators to 48 Democrats. If both Ossoff and Warnock were to win the runoff elections, the chamber would fall into Democratic hands. And if Biden is inaugurated in January, Senator Kamala Harris becomes vice president and gets to decide votes split 50-50. During the debate, Loeffler attempted to label Warnock as a radical liberal, while Warnock consistently hit Loeffler as an appointed senator. Well, that's true. She filled a seat that somebody had vacated. That's how that works. That's actually how all senators are supposed to be, by the way. And asserted that she had purchased that seat. At one point during the debate, Loeffler challenged Warnock to denounce his past statements praising Marxism and the redistribution of income. Why would I renounce that? Because I'm proud of it. Warnock avoided directly answering the question, pivoting to his work as a church leader and attacking Loeffler. So, and we talked a bit about, I think we watched the video of this yesterday. So, yes, apparently she is a ntfederate. So we will see what happens with that. A little bit more Georgia runoff news. Hannity tells Georgia voters, "You have every right to be disgusted, but we need you." From Yale Halon. Georgia voters have every right to be disgusted with the state's handling of the 2020 presidential election, but with the Senate majority in the balance, Republicans must support Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in the January 5th runoffs, Sean Hannity said on Monday. Make no mistakes, this upcoming runoff election is about so much more than just Kelly Loeffler or Senator Perdue, the Hannity host said in his opening monologue. The balance of the Senate is at stake here. The impacts of every American in profound and deep ways. If Republicans lose in Georgia, every gain the president has made, every historic achievement, will be in serious jeopardy, and the last 4 years of hard work will go down the tubes. President Trump continues to forge ahead with his legal battle in the Peach State, alleging widespread voter irregularities and fraud ultimately cost him the November election. It was fraud. It was the worst fraud, okay? I know fraud. I'm a businessman from Manhattan. I've seen fraud. I've seen the worst fraud. And this is the worst fraud. But some Republicans fear that his rhetoric could backfire and discourage already skeptical GOP voters from heading to the polls. People of Georgia, we need you, Hannity said. We've got radical Democrats, far-left individuals who would love nothing more to repeal and replace every one of President Trump's pro-growth policy with their own, scary, socialist version of America. This election is critical. Georgia and the people of Georgia, even though they have every right to be disgusted and may not have all the answers, they need to go to the polls for the sake of the country, he continued. We need you. Trump made a similar argument at a rally Saturday, telling supporters that if you don't vote, the socialists and the communists win, and that's the worst win. If they win, that's the worst win that's out there, okay? Okay, the worst win. So, with that, and I mean, he's Hannity. I've mentioned this before, these mainstream right-wing pundits have done whatever they can to drop to their knees to suck off whoever's the most powerful Republican in the country at the time. And at this point, it happens to be Donald Trump. But I know that Hannity and even Rush, for whatever is left of his life, are looking at McConnell and saying, hey, you know what? I mean, the turtle lip is looking pretty good right now. Because they're going to jump ship as soon as it goes to this point. If they can get control of the Senate. But we'll see what happens off of this. It's an interesting one to watch. Definitely is. All right. Let's keep going here from the Hill. Wallace interrupts Azar over Biden's title. He's the president. Mastrangelo. Uh-oh. I have no scroll. Oh, Chrome is not responding. Hey, this is a great opportunity to let you know if you want to throw a little bit of donation in here to help me upgrade these systems and get this all going a little bit further along. The PayPal link is below. Toss me a couple bucks and we will put that directly into the computer fund. Okay, now that it's caught up, let's get back onto this. Fox News anchor Chris Wallace interrupted Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar on Sunday after Azar referred to Joe Biden as vice president rather than president-elect. We welcome Vice President Biden to the club, Azar said on Fox News Sunday. Since the middle of April, the president's guidelines have called for... Before Azar could finish, Wallace interjected. He is the president-elect, sir. He is the president-elect. Azar did not respond to Wallace, pressing ahead and saying President Trump has called the masks patriotic. Let's have a listen.
I welcome Vice President Biden to the club since the middle.
Okay, maybe let's not have a listen because this is going to do something fucking screwy. Alright, never mind. This isn't going to load. Alright, let's try this again.
I welcome Vice President Biden to the club since the middle of April. The president's guidelines.
Yeah, this is somebody recording off their TV. Fuck that. Never mind. Trump has refused to concede the 2020 presidential election to Biden, and during a Saturday evening rally in Georgia, he continued to argue he won the state and the election despite his loss. Yeah, I just love how these media figures are, and Chris Wallace of all people, because, I mean, we saw Chris Wallace. Mr. President, stop. Hey, Mr. President, you're going to debate me, and you're going to debate Joe Biden at the same time, because I'm the gatekeeper here, and I want to see Joe Biden win. This is just great. Let's keep going. From CNBC, federal judge dismisses Sidney Powell lawsuit that sought to overturn Trump loss in Georgia. From Kevin Breininger and Dan Mangan. A federal judge on Monday quickly dismissed the lawsuit filed by conservative attorney Sidney Powell that sought to overturn President Trump's election loss to Joe Biden in Georgia. The dismissal and a rejection earlier Monday in a similar case by Powell in Michigan are serious blows to Trump's long-shot effort to deny Biden a victory next week in the Electoral College. The ruling in Georgia by a judge, Timothy Batten Sr., came less than 90 minutes into a hearing in Atlanta federal court where Powell had claimed that Trump was the victim of massive ballot fraud related to Georgia's use of the Dominion voting machines. The relief that the plaintiffs seek in this court cannot grant, Batten said. They asked the court to order the Secretary of State to decertify the election results as if such a mechanism even exists, and I find that it does not. Batten did not rule on the merits of Powell's claim, which were made on behalf of a slate of would-be Trump electors in the Electoral College. Instead, the judge granted motions to dismiss the lawsuit on the grounds that the suit did not belong in a federal court. Yeah, that's probably fair, actually, because she probably had to go to a state-level court first. But the Kraken is weakening, which sucks. I kind of wanted to see it go ahead. At this point, and I've mentioned this numerous times, it doesn't matter to me who winds up being the president. I just want to make sure all this stuff is fixed so that when the midterms come around, we actually know that our vote's going to fucking do something. So, with that, the Kraken, well, it hasn't gone away yet, but it's going away quickly. Let's keep going. From The Hill, Ted Cruz offers to argue Pennsylvania election case before the Supreme Court. From John Bowden, Senator Ted Cruz said Monday that should the justices decide to hear it, he has offered to present before the Supreme Court the merits of the case attorneys for President Trump are hoping will overturn Pennsylvania's results in the 2020 election. In a tweet, Cruz said that he had informed the president's attorneys that he stands ready to present the oral argument if the justices decide to grant certiorari in the case. Attorneys for the president are hoping the Supreme Court, to which the Senate has confirmed 3 justices nominated by Trump, will hear a case rejected with prejudice by Pennsylvania Supreme Court, arguing that the state certification of votes should be voided. Well, the only thing that I have to say about that is you are wading into a little bit of dangerous territory with that because of Article 2, and I don't know what the exact legal procedure is to go with that. Whether it is that a Supreme Court ruling is the proper way to figure out what actually happens with this if the lower court decides not to hear it, or if Article 2 holds true and the Supreme Court can't weigh in because elections are to be regulated by the states. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I'd like to see it, even if the case doesn't go President Trump's way, and I hope it does. I still want to see the answer to this, so we know. So we know and understand the Constitution at a greater quality. And that's been one thing I've consistently said has been a good thing that came out of the Trump presidency, is that we continue to get a better understanding of the Constitution, because either he challenges everything or his opponents challenge everything in the Constitution. So we've had decisions as to how this stuff works, and everybody's watching every single move that he makes. So we will see what happens off of that. Let's keep going. From Fox News, Republicans slam Biden's HHS pick, Becerra as disaster for California. By Evie Fordham. Republicans slammed President-elect Joe Biden after he announced his choice of California Attorney General Javier Becerra for Secretary of Health and Human Services on Monday, and they criticized Becerra's record on abortion and other issues. Senator Cotton said that he would not confirm Becerra, and pro-life group Susan B. Anthony List urged other Republican senators to stop this unacceptable nomination from going forward. Xavier Becerra spent his career attacking pro-life Americans and tried to force crisis pregnancy centers to advertise abortions, Cotton wrote on Twitter. I would need a citation for that, if I could, please. He's been a disaster in California, and he is unqualified to lead HHS. I'll be voting no, and Becerra should be rejected by the Senate. With his choice of California Attorney General Xavier Becerra for HHS Secretary, Joe Biden has proven yet again that he's an extremist on abortion. Susan B. Anthony List wrote on Twitter, adding that the former California congressman has voted against banning partial birth abortions. Alliance Defending Freedom's Kristen Waggoner echoed Susan B. Anthony List's extremist label. ADF had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to stop Becerra from forcing religious pro-life pregnancy centers to advertise abortions. He is an extremist who has no regard for conscious or protecting life. There's nothing moderate about this pick. Nothing. Waggoner wrote on Twitter. And that's where we're seeing what's going to come out of a potential Biden presidency, if he does become the president-elect and eventually the president, is, if this runoff goes whatever way that it goes, it's going to be very, very hard for the Senate to confirm anybody into Biden's cabinet. Anybody at all. Which is why everyone's so desperate to get those 2 seats in Georgia, whether to block the cabinet or to instate it. There are positions in the cabinet that can go in without having a congressional approval, but the Senate has to confirm HHS, I believe Housing and Urban Development. I want to look up and get a list of everybody that the Senate has to confirm so we know who has to be there and who doesn't. And I mean, to scuttle the administration right away would be an amazing thing to see. Joe Biden as a lame duck going into his presidency. That's something the government needs to see. All right, let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, Trump to sign coronavirus vaccine executive order that will put pressure on Biden, from Brian Saavedra. President Trump is reportedly expected to sign an executive order this week on distributing coronavirus vaccines that will put pressure on Democrat Joe Biden because it counters a proposal created by one of Biden's top coronavirus advisors. The executive order ensures that all Americans have access to the vaccines before the U.S. government starts shipping the vaccines to other nations. The priority is to make sure we distribute these vaccines to Americans before we start shipping them around the world, or to get international access, an official told Fox News. Oh shit, I thought that was Trump. The official said that the U.S. would most likely not start shipping vaccines to other nations until at least late spring, and that would only occur after Americans who want to be vaccinated receive the vaccines. The news of the executive order comes just days ahead of the FDA Thursday meeting regarding Pfizer and BioNTech's applications for emergency authorization of the coronavirus vaccine. 3 weeks after the companies filed for it, Fox News reported. The FDA also plans to meet on December 17th to discuss Moderna's vaccine. The executive order comes in contrast to what Biden coronavirus advisor Dr. Zeke Emanuel has proposed doing, which is to give the vaccine to other nations before all Americans have the opportunity to receive it. Emanuel, who served as a key architect of the ACA under the Obama administration, co-authored a paper in September in which he encouraged officials to follow the fair priority model, which calls for fair international distribution of the vaccine, rather than what he and his co-authors characterized as vaccine nationalism. Well, that's scary as shit. Now, mind you, I know a lot of people that are not going to take the vaccine, including healthcare workers, including the greatest live chat in the world. Fight me on that. Including a lot of Liberty Twitter. Not necessarily because they don't believe in vaccines, but because there's so much talk about this being mandatory. And they don't trust it. I don't trust it. Do you trust it? I don't. With all the talk of all this being mandatory. But yet, the globalists, as Alex Jones would say, the globalists, they just want to get the vaccine out there. And while they're doing that, they want to put chemicals in the water. Turn the frickin' frogs gay! One great thing out of all the bad things about President Trump was the fact that he was America first. And he wants to make sure that the vaccines go to Americans first. If they want them. And some of them aren't going to want them. But if they want them, they should have the first crack at them. So, I'm glad to see this. Absolutely am. Let's keep going. From The Blaze. Democratic Chicago official caught violating lockdown rules at his restaurant calls it an error in judgment. We were seating people, but somebody ratted us out. From Carlos Garcia. A Chicago city lawmaker was caught violating the state and city coronavirus lockdown rules by allowing diners to eat inside of his restaurant, and he said that it was an error in judgment. The latest incident of the Democratic lockdown hypocrisy was first reported by a blogger called Second City Cop on Monday. Chicago Alderman Tom Tunney soon acknowledged his error in judgment and claimed that diners were made to observe social distancing rules. On a sporadic basis, we have allowed a very limited number of our regular diners to eat inside of the restaurant while observing social distancing and mask-wearing rules. This was an error in judgment, and it won't happen again, said Tunney in the statement. On Monday, a worker at the Ann Sather restaurant told a Block Club Chicago reporter that they had stopped seating customers inside. That ended yesterday. We were seating some people, but some people ratted us out, he said. A Department Business Affairs and Consumer Protection spokesman told the Block Club that the matter was under investigation, and the mayor said that the restaurant would face the consequences of violating the order despite being owned by a city official. Now, this is the first time that I've covered one of these stories here because, I've always known that it's the people that are locking things down that think that they are somehow exempt from the rules. So, that's not like that's news, but it keeps happening is the problem. They don't stop. It just happens again and again and again and again on this. We pigs are the brain workers of society stage of Animal Farm. If you haven't read this yet, go back and read that book again. So, there's another one here. Thank you, Tom Tunney, rather. All right, from CNN. Florida police raid home of former state COVID-19 data scientist. From Casey Tolan and Kurt Devine. Florida police raided the home of a former state coronavirus data scientist on Monday, escalating a feud between the state government and data expert who has accused officials of trying to cover up the extent of the pandemic. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement executed a search warrant on Monday at the home of data scientist Rebecca Jones, who was fired by the State Department of Health in May. The agency is investigating whether Jones accessed a state government messaging system without authorization to urge employees to speak out about coronavirus deaths, according to an affidavit by an agent working on the case. Jones told CNN that she hadn't improperly accessed any state messaging system and that she lost access to her government computer accounts after she was removed from her position. About 10 officers with guns drawn. Really? About 10 officers with guns drawn showed up at the Tallahassee home around 8:30 a.m., Jones said. A video taken from a camera in her house, which she posted on social media, showed an officer pointing a gun up a stairwell as Jones told him her 2 children were upstairs. Really? Jones said that the officer was pointing his gun at her 2-year-old daughter, 11-year-old son, and her husband, who she said were in the stairwell, although video doesn't make that clear. Really? Okay, the badge needs to be taken away from all 10 of these people. 10 guns drawn police officers for one small woman for a clerical crime. Are you fucking kidding me? 10 police officers, guns drawn, pointing a gun at a 2-year-old. Somebody needs to answer for that one, because that is a step too far. That is a step too far. Rebecca Jones posted a video of state law officers raiding her home on her Twitter account. Officers also pointed a gun 6 inches from my face and took all of her computers, her phone, and several hard drives and thumb drives, Jones said. Gretel Plessinger, a spokesperson for the law enforcement department, said that agents knocked on Jones's door and called her in an attempt to minimize disruption to the family. Dude, this was not armed people throwing Molotov cocktails or a guy wrestling with a police officer in his car trying to grab his gun. This was a woman sitting at home, a small, tiny woman with kids in the house. Jesus fucking Christ. Well, that's what happened in Florida over a clerical crime. All right, let's keep going. That's fucking ridiculous, my God. From the Blaze, unhinged leftist teacher absolutely flips out on peaceful anti-lockdown protesters in Oregon. Fuck all of you. Bitch, kill yourself, she added. Now, we all know that's the line too far for me. Look at that. She's got the birds flying, screaming. You're not supposed to project unless you're wearing the mask, remember? That's why they don't let you be in church, because you project when you sing. From Dave Urbanski. You might say Oregon has been the unofficial epicenter of protest in 2020, with leftist groups such as Antifa and Black Lives Matter on a nearly daily basis, occupying the streets of Portland and physically attacking local police and federal officers, destroying small businesses, torching buildings, and intimidating anyone who gets in their way. Well, yeah, that's because the state government blocked the federal government from coming in and doing something about it, and let these people have free reign, up to and including the point that they protested and tried to start on fire the Portland mayor's apartment building. We also saw what happened when conservatives descended on Portland at the end of August and staged their own car rally protest in support of President Trump. A 100% Antifa militant appears to ambush a pro-life police activist and fatally shot him before taking off into the night. Well, there was a protest of a different sort over the weekend in Bend, Oregon, about 3 hours southeast of Portland, and these demonstrators were protesting against governmental coronavirus lockdowns. As has been typical of protests involving conservatives and Trump supporters, the anti-lockdown gathering at the intersection of Northwest Greenwood Avenue and Northwest Wall Street was peaceful. That is, until a self-proclaimed teacher stopped her Subaru and absolutely flipped out on the demonstrators holding their sign on the sidewalk. Fortunately, a cell phone camera was rolling and caught the glorious moment for all of you to enjoy. Wearing a headband, with her COVID-19 mask dangling below her chin, the ponytailed leftist let loose on protesters. Bitch, kill yourself. Yeah, that looks like a sane woman. Oh, it's already clear where this is headed. I'm a fucking teacher. I work in school, she screams before re-educating her listeners with what one might characterize as social studies for the new millennium. Fuck you. Fuck you. I am a teacher. I teach students. Who else do you teach? Anybody that you teach is by default a student. And while the protesters simply turn up their own volume, and some simply laugh at the lunacy-filled moment, our families are dying, she hollers, her voice cracking as it pitches upwards into Mariah Carey territory. Oh, I hope they have a video. Oh, I hope they have a video. In another odd moment, she appears to welcome the attention of those recording her antics, maniacally waving and yelling hi to the cameras. Then she hollers, "Fuck all of you," as if the point needed underscoring before finally making her left turn, pun not intended, or maybe it is, away from demonstrators as they chant USA, USA, USA. Oh, we get to watch this. Yes! Alright, let me turn your ears on. Hopefully this has better audio than the last one we tried with. I wonder if the school board knows she mixes all those medications. Ah, I'm glad we got to watch that. Let's keep going. All right, from the New York Post. Chicago Teachers Union deletes tweet claiming school reopening pushed rooted in sexism and racism. I'm going to read that again because I don't even believe that that's what that says. Chicago Teachers Union deletes tweet claiming school reopening push rooted in sexism and racism. I still don't believe that. We got to read this because I don't believe that this headline exists. This is originally published from Fox News from Lucas Manfredi. The Chicago Teachers Union is facing swift criticism on social media Sunday after claiming in a now deleted tweet that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. One user replied to the tweet saying some people really don't like doing their jobs. Another user responded, "Then why are minority parents suing in California, saying virtual learning has left their children behind? You can care, or you say you care about your students, but you clearly don't." Well, they are teachers and they teach students, don't you see? Meanwhile, another Twitter user called to end public school unions, arguing that they are destructive and are undermining the education of our children. Yeah, see, and this is one thing. Slight tangent here for half a second. That's one thing that goes along with unions. Now, I am not a person that has a problem with people unionizing. I don't like the way that current unions are structured, where they are taking your union dues directly out of your paycheck because that has to come through your payroll department. And if you're going to tell me that the union's going to argue against the company, the payroll department that's paying them, I've got a bridge to sell you. But public sector unions, on the other hand, is not workers bargaining with their employers. Public sector unions are workers bargaining with the taxpayers. And if you don't see a problem with that, you might want to look at the power dynamic once again. Now, I accept police unions as a necessary evil because, that one bad thing can happen and all of a sudden the pitchfork mob is coming out for the police officer instead of having it dealt with internally. I'm in support of those. Basically just for protection of the people who go up and voluntarily decide to enact unconstitutional laws from the government. Because they do still have families to go home to. But for the rest of the public sector unions, your municipal workers, your teachers, people like that, you are directly arguing against the taxpayer. And that's a power dynamic that I'm not comfortable with. But Small tangent on that one. While the tweet has since been deleted, the union retweeted a reply in support of the original tweet. Been feeling this lately. We can discuss the merits of reopening, but the conversation cannot be rooted in white supremacy, the user wrote. White folks questioning BIPOC's intelligence, especially women of color, our ability to understand the science, the coded language is hella out of pocket. Following the backlash, the union issued a new tweet saying, fair enough, complex issue requires nuance, and so much more discussion. More important, the people the decision affects deserve more, so we'll continue to give them that. Appreciate the feedback of those who truly are in the struggle. So, it's racism if they want to go back and open the schools back up. It's racism and sexism. Apparently. I don't understand. Somebody needs to explain this to me. All right, let's keep going here. From The Blaze. Bernie Sanders admits Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats walked away from coronavirus relief bill offered by Republicans. From Carlos Garcia. Senator Bernie Sanders admitted that Democrats walked away from the coronavirus bill that the Republicans had put on the table. Sanders made the comments during an interview with Jake Tapper on his CNN show Monday. He also voiced his opposition to a compromise bill to which Democrats had signaled approval. Well, you talked about the $1.8 trillion bill that the White House, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, was working on with the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrats walked away from the bill, Tapper said. Well, that's right, interrupted Sanders. Because they wanted $2.2 trillion and they walked away from a $1.8 trillion bill. What was the mistake? Tapper asked. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you think about all of the pudding cups that people could buy with $1.8 trillion, it is criminal because everybody deserves a pudding cup in this country. Here was the proposal. Much larger. Democrats are, no, that's not good enough. And now we're prepared to accept a proposal that has, I think, $350 billion in new money, Sanders continued. Sanders argued that the bill being negotiated didn't have enough of what Democrats and progressives wanted, and that Democrats were going to give the Republicans everything they want in the proposed bill. I don't think this is much of a compromise. I think Republicans have probably gotten 90% of what they want. Our job is to fight and get at least a 50-50 deal, Sanders said in the interview. We got to do a lot better and negotiate a lot harder. Others have questioned the Democrats' rationale behind their acceptance of a bill that had far less than a previous bill that they rejected. On Friday, Nancy Pelosi snapped at a CNN reporter for asking her to explain why they were accepting the compromise bill. Let me tell you something, Pelosi scolded CNN's Manu Raju. Don't characterize what we did before as a mistake. As a preface to your question, if you want an answer. That was not a mistake, Pelosi exclaimed. It was a decision, and it's taking us to a place where we can do the right thing without other, shall we say, considerations on legislation that we don't want. Or, alternatively, you don't have to worry about mail-in voting anymore, and now you think that Joe Biden is going to be the president-elect, so now you're willing to work with the government, once again. So, yeah, Sanders coming out saying, yes, we absolutely did walk away from this. That is great. I love that. All right. From my neck of the woods, from Madison.com, Republican legislators defied Governor Tony Evers, put a Christmas tree in the closed Capitol Rotunda. From Todd Richmond. 2 Republican lawmakers put up a Christmas tree in the Wisconsin Capitol Rotunda despite being told that they weren't allowed to do so. A show of defiance after Democratic Governor Tony Evers opted not to display a tree there this year because the building is closed to the public due to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. The Department of Administration has traditionally placed a towering evergreen decorated with ornaments constructed by school children in the rotunda every year. Evers, who controls the DOA, has refused to call the tree a Christmas tree, referring to it instead as a holiday tree, irking Republicans. Of course he did. Of course he did. You know, just can't talk about Christ, can you? This year, Evers decided to forego a tree because the Capitol is closed to the public due to the coronavirus pandemic that didn't sit well with two Republican representatives, Paul Tittle of Manitowoc and Shay Sortwell of Two Rivers, who, like other lawmakers, are still working out of the building. Records show the two lawmakers applied for a permit on December 1st to place what they described as a historical display in the rotunda from December 1st through January 6th. The application did not specify what the display would be: a Christmas tree. Dan Blackdeer, chief of the Capitol Police, an extension of the DOA, denied the request the next day. He wrote that although the DOA can issue permits for events and exhibits, only the State Capitol and Executive Residence Board can approve decorative items. He went on to say that the state law prohibits the DOA from permitting any exhibits on the rotunda's ground floor, and a permit request must be filed at least 72 hours in advance. While the lawmakers sought to display an exhibit the same day they submitted the application, Blackdeer said, finally he wrote, the DOA is denying all permit requests for the interior of the Capitol because the building is closed to the public. And I mean, that's just because I've been in the Capitol Rotunda before, looking by perspective against everything, compared to what they usually do in the Capitol Rotunda, that is a tiny, tiny tree. But it's still there. Because Evers can pull his tyrant bullshit all that he wants, and people are still going to say no. So, good on them. It's historic. Even if it's tiny. Even if it's tiny, it's still a big middle finger back to Evers. Alright, let's keep going. We got just a few more here, then we will do Twitter trending and head on out of here. From CNN. New Los Angeles DA announces end to cash bail, the death penalty, and trying children as adults. From Alexandra Meeks and Madeline Holcomb. Newly elected LA County District Attorney George Gascon announced sweeping plans for the criminal justice reform he was sworn into office on Monday. Gascon defeated 8-year incumbent Jackie Lacey as he assumed the head of the largest prosecutor's office in the nation on Monday. He said his new agenda for Los Angeles, which includes ending cash bail for certain minor offenses, the death penalty, and the practice of charging juveniles as adults, will differ from his predecessors in order to better prevent crime, reduce recidivism, and restore victims. You know, I thought that recidivism is how you got workers in the state of California. I recognize that these are big changes, but they are changes that will enable us to actually affect the truly vulnerable, Gascon said. End to cash bail and the death penalty. Gascon has announced immediately ending cash bail system, adding that experts believe hundreds of incarcerated individuals would be eligible for release tomorrow under a new pretrial release policy. He said his office will also roll out a plan to eliminate all bail in the nation's most populous county, beginning January 1st, 2021. The money bail system is as unsafe as it is unjust, Gascon said. The rich can be dangerous, while the poor impose zero threat to society. What? What? I would argue that the rich and the poor both impose somewhat of a threat to society because they're not monoliths in either side. They're individuals. Some of them are sane and peaceful. Some of them are fucking psychotic on both ends of the spectrum. So that's just wrong. The amount of money a person has in their bank account does not determine the danger they pose to their community, he added. Criminal justice reform advocates have argued cash bail systems have unfair consequences on the poor. Cash bail systems criminalize poverty, as people who are unable to afford bail are detained, while they await trial for weeks, even months, according to the progressive advocacy organization Center for American Progress. That's interesting. I've been on bail I've been on bail twice in my life. And both times, it was explained to me that if I didn't post bail, I would be sitting in pretrial the next morning. So I don't know if it's just because LA County is so big that they have to wait weeks and months, but yeah, both times it happened to me, and it was in 2 different states. I was informed that if I didn't post, I would be sitting in the courtroom the next morning. But not everyone in California is in favor of eliminating cash bail. Prop 25, a ballot measure aimed at eliminating the practice, likely failed at the ballot box last month. According to unofficial tallies from the California Secretary of State, which are set to be certified on Friday, 56% of California voters said that they were against the measure of eliminating cash bail. The union that represents LAPD is also in opposition to Gascon's plan to end cash bail, calling the move disturbing. As homicides, shooting victims, and shots fired into occupied homes soar in Los Angeles, it's disturbing that Gascon's first act in office is to explore every avenue possible to release from jail those responsible for this bloodshed, the LAPPL said in a statement. Victims and law-abiding residents lost a voice today, while criminals and gang members gained an ally in the prosecutor's office. And from what I understand, this is not the way that the opponents are putting this out either. This is to be for minor offenses, probably petty theft, maybe minor vandalism, something like that, tagging something with spray paint. This isn't going to be for somebody shooting up a home. I'm willing to bet that there's still going to be either remand or cash bail for that. But still, if you don't have some sort of incentive sitting there, why would you ever go back? That's my big question. The cash bail is a deposit. And by the way, you get it back. Both times I got it back. It's just a deposit to make sure that you come back for trial. And if you don't, the state gets free money. And I don't like the state getting free money. So, with that, they're reopening police shooting cases. That's actually probably not a bad idea. At least look it over again. I know that in the Michael Brown case, they've reopened that a couple times and looked into it, and every time they find that the police officer acted in self-defense. But yeah, I mean, if you ever want to take a second look at something, I'm okay with people taking a second look at something. If it can make an innocent man go free, have an absolute second look at it. Every time. And ending the death penalty is, well, I guess that's between you and your state. So, we will see what happens with that. From Newsweek. After AOC calls for boycott of pro-Trump Goya, sales skyrocket, and CEO names her Employee of the Month. From Ayla Slisko. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, was named Goya's Employee of the Month for allegedly driving up business with her criticism, according to the company's CEO. Goya Foods CEO Robert Unanue made the remarks during an interview on a radio show hosted by conservative Michael Berry on Monday. Ocasio-Cortez supported a Goya boycott while calling out Unanue for his public support of President Trump over the summer. Unanue insisted that she had gone against her own people by denouncing the company, while claiming her statements led to a massive spike in sales. It is interesting that AOC was one of the first people to step in line to boycott Goya, to go against her own people, as supposedly a Puerto Rican woman. To go against people of her own Latin culture, Unanue said. To some extent, I can understand AOC. She's young, she's naive, she doesn't get it. But you've got someone like Bernie Sanders, who's older than us, older than me, older than God, who still doesn't get it. She was actually our Employee of the Month. When she boycotted us, our sales actually increased 1,000%, Unanue said. We never were able to hand it to her, but she got Employee of the Month for bringing attention to Goya and our adobo. Actually, our sales of adobo did very well after she said, make your own adobo. She's our hero. She helped boost sales tremendously. Unanue's controversial praise for Trump during the White House event in July, where the CEO insisted that the U.S. was truly blessed to have an incredible builder as president. The comments quickly inspired online backlash and calls to boycott the business, which describes itself as the largest Hispanic-owned food company in the country. Yeah, I went out and got a bunch of Goya and donated it to food pantries, and kept some of it here. Now, a lot of the Goya stuff is high in carbs, so I haven't been able to eat a lot of it, but yeah, I absolutely went out and got a bunch of it and donated it. Didn't you? Isn't that the nice thing to do? Alright. From Politico. Supreme Court sidelines case against bathroom access for transgender students. From Bianca Guillentan. The Supreme Court brushed aside a lawsuit Monday aimed at barring transgender students from bathrooms and locker rooms and matched their gender identity. The High Court has decided not to hear the case aimed at ending an Oregon school district policy of allowing transgender students to use facilities that match their gender identity. The Supreme Court's rejection of an appeal is a win for the civil rights groups that worried that the confirmation of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, which cemented a conservative majority on the bench, would threaten LGBTQ equality. Or, and hear me out, ACB realized that this is a local issue that has no place in the Supreme Court. Because this is a local issue and has no place in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has once again said that transgender youth are not a threat to other students, said Chase Strangio, Deputy Director for Transgender Justice, with the ACLU's LGBT and HIV project. During her confirmation hearing, Democratic lawmakers and advocates criticized Barrett for referring to sexual orientation as a preference, and she later apologized. Barrett also insisted that she's never discriminated on the basis of sexual preference, although a New York Times profile found that she had served as a board member at an Indiana private school that barred admission to students of unmarried parents when same-sex marriage was not yet legalized in the state. Parents for Privacy, a group of students and parents in the Dallas School District of northwestern Oregon, argued that the district's student safety plan violates the privacy rights of cisgender parents and students as well as Title IX. I don't know if it does violate Title IX, but Title IX shouldn't exist anyway, because all of this should be done at a local level. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed the lawsuit after it found the district's plan sought to avoid discrimination and ensure the safety and well-being of transgender students and did not violate Title IX. The court also said there's no 14th Amendment fundamental privacy right to avoid all risk of intimate exposure to or by a transgender person who was assigned the opposite biological sex at birth. When I first started hearing about this under the Obama administration in 2015, I had a discussion with a coworker in which we said that when the government comes up and tells you what bathroom you're allowed to use, the government has become too pervasive in your life. I mean, this wasn't a problem until 2015. And I can reference the 2004 Comedy Central roast of Dennis Leary. When in the intro credits, Leary went in to take a piss at a urinal, and a woman, so appearing in a dress, walked up to the next urinal, whipped it out, and started peeing next to him. This wasn't a problem, and nobody gave a fuck. Until Barack made it a problem. Honestly, I really don't care. And if something on a local level wants to come back and say something about it, that's where it belongs. At a city ordinance level. And I would call the city ordinance people that put it up, I'd call them assholes too, but that's where it belongs, at a city level. This is not a federal thing. And once we're to the point where the federal government is telling you what bathroom you can use, the federal government is too pervasive in your life. And it's time to castrate that motherfucker. It's time to castrate the federal government. Once they've come to that point in your life. And the other thing that I've said about bathrooms. The bathroom is designed, in most cases, unless it's a one-holer with just a regular toilet in it, then they're just putting signs out there for arbitrary purposes. But for the most part, the bathrooms in public places are designed to evacuate waste from your body in the quickest and most efficient way possible. Unless you've got the stadium buddy, if you're a chick who's pretending to be a dude, you're not going to stand up to the urinal and take a leak. Go to the bathroom that is designed to evacuate waste from your body in the quickest and most efficient way possible. And as far as locker rooms, honestly, that should be between you and the people that you're sharing it with. And if they don't like it, then you can have that argument. But you don't need to get the federal government involved in this shit. I don't understand why the federal government has to be involved in every aspect of our lives, everywhere. This is nonsense. And good on the Supreme Court, by the way, for not taking this up. Let them fight it out in Oregon. All right, last one here, and then we'll do Twitter trending and head on out of here. Ted Cruz triggers hysterical Twitter mob with a photo from a Texas deer hunt. This is what we do in Texas. From Blaze TV staff, leftist called Senator Ted Cruz, a monster, not a human being, over the weekend after he tweeted a photo of himself with a deer he'd apparently hunted and killed in South Texas. Glenn Beck had a news flash for these virtue signaling lefties who lost it over the idea of a hunter actually hunting. That's what we do in Texas. So, if you're a liberal from California or elsewhere and Ted Cruz's deer photo drove you out of your mind, Glenn suggests that you don't move to Texas. And they took the video down. Oh, that sucks. I was hoping to get some photos of this one here. They took the video down. But, yeah, Ted Cruz took a photo with a tiny little deer and called it a monster buck. That's what triggered me, was the fact that he called that a monster buck. That was a tiny little deer. That was a little bitty thing. But I don't think that these people over on the left have any idea where their meat comes from. They say, I won't eat anything with a faith. I don't know. I really don't. I can't with these people. Plus, I've been talking for an hour and 17 minutes. So, yeah, I suggest also that if these progressives from California are appalled by somebody hunting a deer, you don't go to northern Wisconsin either. Or anywhere in Wisconsin, for that matter, in the first 2 weeks of November. Because you'll probably have a heart attack after you see so many deer on the back of that little rack that sticks in the trailer hitch on the back of some high-end crossover SUV. All right, that's all that I have for the news for the day. And the last thing we do on Tuesday is Twitter Trending. As I run out of voice here because I'm getting to that point, because I've been talking for an hour and 17 minutes. So let's look at the Explore page. Let's get the Twitter Trending. We'll read the top 5 and we'll get the hell out of here. And I will make a sausage and cheese omelet. All right. AirPods Max is the top trend for the day. Let's see if we can figure out why. Apparently they come in space gray, sky blue, pink, and green. We have so many questions about the AirPods Max case. Oh, that's suggestive. Apple announces AirPods Max over ear headphones with noise cancellation, priced at... Okay, so these are going to be an actual, like a regular pair of headphones. That's interesting. Actually, well, no, I like having my regular wireless headphones because they're sleek and they're out of the way. I wouldn't mind having a set of those, though. That wouldn't be a bad thing. All right. Let's check into the next one here. Number 2 is John Lennon. Fans remember the late John Lennon on the 40th anniversary of his tragic death. The only tragedy that came out of the murder of John Lennon was the fact that John Lennon was actually, for all of his commie faults, a decent musician. I couldn't stand any of the lyrics, and I couldn't stand him personally. But as far as the music went, he was actually a decent musician. But the worst part of that is the fact that John Lennon's walking down the street. Somebody comes up, puts 12 bullets into John Lennon. Yoko Ono is standing right next to him, and she doesn't even get a drop of blood on her. Figure that one out. All right, we'll skip the Tuesday motivation stuff, Tuesday vibe. So the third one we'll do is Troop, apparently. Well, this should be interesting. Oh no, it's just Troop reductions. These are tough times for acting troops and other theatrical units. Get a spell checker, Don. Unless you're just going out to trigger these fucking people. So apparently, Donald Trump tweeted out at 8:36 a.m. I hope House Republicans will vote against the very weak National Defense Authorization Act, which I will veto. Must include a termination of Section 230. You idiot. For national security purposes, preserve our national monuments and allow for 5G and troop reductions in foreign lands. But yeah, it's TROUPE. I think he just does it to needle these people. I really do at this point. I have no words. All right. Apparently William Shakespeare is trending, probably with the same thing. The second person in the world to have the COVID vaccine, and this is not a joke, is William Shakespeare from Warwickshire. Apparently, somebody named William Shakespeare lives in England and got the COVID vaccine. Looks like he's 92. That was interesting. I mean, the guy looks ancient. He might have been the William Shakespeare at this point. All right, and number 5, last one we'll do for the day. Hashtag Trump is a complete failure. I don't know. It's probably just a lot of left-wing bullshit at this point. We can probably scroll down and find what the origin was of this, but it looks like this is just a lot of retweets and people, I see the hashtag, I'm going to tweet it out. I see the trend, I'm going to add to the trend. So, we will see what happens with that. And that's going to be it for the day. So, that's going to be all that I have for news and for Twitter trending for the day. We'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary. Still working on finding that 4th person for across the board. I thought I had 4 people, but one person did wind up having to drop out, unfortunately. But I thank you for your consideration, and you know who you are. I'm not going to name anybody right now, but we'll be back here tomorrow for more contemporary. If anybody can think of a more libertarian woman, or somebody who would even know a lot about how liberty is portrayed in the mainstream media, send her my way. I'll give her a consideration, and we'll possibly get her up on for across the board. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.